Hey friends, welcome back to the Kirkpatrick podcast. It is Vanessa, and I'm so excited to be talking to y'all today more about a culture of evaluation. So for those of you that may not know, my new book that is coming out in May is called Building a Culture of Evaluation, the new Kirkpatrick Model for Performance and Innovation. And I think we've got to talk a little bit about what a culture of evaluation actually looks like, right? And obviously, you're going to pick up the book. You're going to pre-order it now so you have it on May 12th or close to thereof. Or if this is after that, you will go buy the book to really dive into it. But the problem with a culture of is there's so many cultures of, right? There's culture of continuous improvement, a culture of innovation, a culture of growth, a culture of this, a culture of that. And these phrases, they sound good, but often they mean not so much. And a culture of evaluation in and of itself is one of those phrases that sounds good, but can often mean very little. For some organizations, it might mean more surveys. For others, it might mean more dashboards. For others, it might mean more reporting. And while all of those things involve data, they actually don't define culture. Because a culture of evaluation isn't about what an organization collects. It's about what an organization does with it when it learns. And so today I want to make sure I talk to you guys about what a culture of evaluation actually looks like in practice, and not in theory, not on a slide, but in everyday decisions that leaders and teams can make. So one of the fears I have is I fear that people will hear about the book, hear about this culture of evaluation that I am, really promoting. And they're going to assume it's constant measurement, it's policing performance, and it's just about justifying decisions after the fact. And I am here to tell you, those behaviors do not create insight. They just create fatigue. Constant measurement does truly nothing for the organization. When evaluation is used defensively to prove value, avoid blame, check boxes, people stop engaging honestly. Data then becomes something to manage and not something to learn from. And that, I think, is part of the problem of where we got to where we are, why we are where we are when it comes to evaluation, because we just collected a bunch of data and then we did nothing with it. Performance stayed the same, our program stayed the same. And I actually think probably some things got a little bit worse. And when that happens, you don't get rid of evaluation, right? It doesn't disappear, but it becomes performative. Oh, here comes that annual survey. I'm going to fill it out. Nothing's going to happen with with what I respond with. Nothing's going to happen with the data. And then we're going to move on. And organizations may believe they have a culture of evaluation because they measure a lot. They track a lot of data. I mean, it's not hard to get data these days, but measurement volume is not the same thing as evaluation maturity. A real culture of evaluation isn't defined by how often data is collected. It's defined by how people respond when the data surfaces something uncomfortable. Do leaders get curious or do they get defensive? Do teams reflect or do they explain away? Does bad news trigger learning or silence? I can't tell you how often we see something bad and we're like, let's just pretend we didn't see that. Or something gets uncovered and that leader that recommended whatever that program or initiative was starts to get defensive. Now, there's a lot that we can talk about when it comes to that piece of it, right? And about psychological safety and all of that. But we have to reframe our thinking from defensiveness and justification and audits. It's really not helping our case for evaluation and measurement. And yet, these are the only things that often we think of. When an organization is a true culture of evaluation, there's a few things that are constantly present. The whole organization is part of the process. Learning, or wherever evaluation takes place, isn't the only part that owns and is bought into evaluation. Data is actually able to be shared freely. People are pulling in the learning and performance function or the evaluation team from the beginning, and they're thinking with that mindset. Leaders start asking questions that are not just about outcomes, but they're asking questions that spark curiosity, and they want to learn more so that they can then make better decisions for better outcomes. Teams reflect on performance regularly, not just when something goes wrong. See, we've got to remember to celebrate those things that are positive, that are successes, so that we can continue to repeat them. And data is used to adjust decisions in real time, not just defend past ones. The amount of waste we have in organizations because we're only evaluating after the fact, not in real time, is astronomical. You want to find savings? Start there. Evaluation then becomes part of how the entire organization thinks. It shows up in planning conversations, in after action reviews, in between, the progress meetings, right? In the check-in meetings, in leadership meetings, they're talking about evaluation, and they're talking about measurement, and they're talking about data. And they're not thinking of it as a report. Oh, do we have that report yet from the eval team? But they're thinking about it as a way of making sense of what's happening in the organization so they can make the right decisions moving forward. The Kirkpatrick model for me, there's no other foundation. Yes, I know I bought the company, but the 4 levels and its longevity is what supports a culture of evaluation. It's not about just an ROI, a financial number. It's not about just justifying things after the fact. The way the model is truly built and as it's evolved, it supports a culture of evaluation. It encourages organizations to look at behavior in context, not in isolation. To pay attention to results over time, not just at the end. And examine the conditions that enable or inhibit success. So in other words, the Kirkpatrick model reinforces learning, not judgment. And when it's used this way, evaluation becomes less threatening and more useful. It creates space for inquiry rather than verdicts. It creates psychological safety to really explore. And it is the catalyst for innovation, growth, performance, improvement. One of the most important distinctions that I make both in my work and in my book is that a culture of evaluation cannot be sustained by one individual alone. Too many times, I see organizations send one person, maybe 2 people, maybe even 3 people through our program. And in the past, it was just through the bronze program, and expect that person to reimagine the entire organization and build this culture of evaluation. Because I didn't make up this culture out of thin air. It is from my direct observation of what I see works, my exploration of organizations, and what I see organizations wanting. It's great that you have talented learning and performance professionals, you have talented evaluators, and you have committed leaders. But if the organization as a whole does not support reflection, curiosity, adjustment, failure, evaluation will always feel heavy. Your culture can either amplify evaluation or it could actually exhaust it. And it's up to you as the leader of the organization to bring along the entire organization. That's the other question I get often. How do we get this to work? It has to start from the top. The executives that are sitting around the table have to be bought into this whole, we are going to do evaluation properly. We're going to be looking in real time. We are going to provide psychological safety for failures. And we are going to really try to learn from the data that we're receiving and put some of it to action. It is not a change that happens overnight, my friends. It is changing culture, takes time, but it can be done. And when folks come into the collective, this realization is kind of like a slap in the face a little bit. It really hits them hard because they come in thinking, oh, we just need better metrics. We just need another tool. We need better templates. We need your surveys. We need your stamp on this. But then they leave, the programs in our labs and our sessions realizing something way deeper. Culture evaluation isn't built by adding more measurement. It's built by changing how people talk about performance. And the collective exists to hold that conversation, to give people space to rethink evaluation as a cultural practice and not a technical one. That's why I went so deep and so big on the collective. Like, sure, I'll give you tools, I'll give you templates, I'll give you case studies. What I really want you to do is talk to each other. I want you to watch the videos, go to the labs. I want you to go to the networking events. I want you to go to the forums and talk to each other, learn from each other, because that's the only way we grow. And this idea runs throughout the book as well. It's not about evaluation as a function. It's not about evaluation as a report, but evaluation as a signal of how an organization learns, adapts, and takes responsibility for performance. And if the culture doesn't support learning, there is no framework or tool that is going to save you. Everyone wants to buy a tool to do the work for them. It's the culture that does the work. So if evaluation feels heavy, performative, or exhausting in your organization, that's not a measurement problem. It's actually a cultural signal. A real culture of evaluation actually feels lighter, not because it's easier, but because it helps people to learn. And when evaluation helps people learn, it finally starts doing the work that it's always meant to do. It finally provides you with the insights you need so that you can ensure the bets that you make are going to pay off. So friends, if you want to learn more, if you want to dive in and you want to learn from each other, come join us at the collective. Pick up the book. You can pre-order it if it is before May 12th on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you get your books or you might be a member of. And I appreciate your support, and I'm so looking forward to hearing your feedback on a culture of evaluation. Talk soon, friends.